welcome to Brothers of Time.
Brothers of Time.
This is our first podcast, and we are doing the impossible task of talking about all of the chapters of the Wheel of Time in a podcast format, where we're going to talk about what happens in the chapter, some spoiler-free analysis, and then we'll get right into the really interesting foreshadowing bits. That's kind of what we're going to be doing in this podcast.
Yeah, it's such a great series. You introduced me to it. I've kind of read them on and off as a physical form. I've listened to them mostly as an audio book, and you've kind of read them religiously a few times as well, haven't you?
I think I've read them about 4 times,
Yeah.
and I've just started listening to the audiobook. Actually, we should explain who we are, shouldn't we, first, probably? So we're brothers. I'm Ollie, and this is Louis, and we are both a bit obsessed with the Wheel of Time, and in the middle of whatever 5th or 6th reread, and want to start talking about it a bit.
Yeah.
So you know, if you like this and you want us to keep going, please hit the like button, subscribe to this brand new channel, and join us, and let us know if there's anything we miss or anything else you want to say in the comments, you know, because we're learning with this podcast, so
Absolutely.
it might go nowhere.
It's very self-indulgent, get to talk about the Wheel of Time and look like we're kind of officializing something, but just enjoyable, wasn't it?
When I first read the prologue, I think it was really confusing. I didn't really know what was going on. So if you've never read The Eye of the World or The Wheel of Time, definitely read the prologue, and don't worry if it doesn't make any sense. Just enjoy the epicness of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure the first bit of the video is pretty spoiler free, and we'll then tell you when we're entering a bit. We're going to start talking about the later books, and we're going to get into all how this prologue links to all the later books, which it really does. It's absolutely amazing. So we'll let you know clearly when we're entering the spoilers. We will spoil the chapter itself, so we will talk through what happens in the chapter before the spoiler section. So if you haven't read the chapter, the prologue, go and read it, and then come back and watch this. So I think maybe, do you want to just take them through, Lou, what happens in the prologue, what the kind of rough story is?
So yeah, you open up the book, or in my case, you start listening to it, Dragonmount, prologue, and you arrive in this scene of a aftermath of a absolute global event. That is, you know, carnage everywhere. You've got kind of bits of a palace, molten stone, dead bodies strewn everywhere, and one single figure. You're going to talk about the characters in this prologue in a sec, but walks through this. He's stepping over and around bodies. He's kind of seems to have gone mad, and he's looking for his wife. He's calling out, and then the second character comes along. He is less mad, it seems, than the first character, and they are talking about effectively the breaking of the world. And
that's not really a spoiler, is it? Because the breaking of the world is such a historic event in the Wheel of Time.
Can you explain a little bit more about the two characters in the prologue?
So 2 characters in the prologue. And the first one's Lews Therin, who seems to be a bit like a king. And he's sort of got living in a palace, wandering through it. As you've already talked about, you find out he's killed his family, and he's joined by Elan Morin Tedranai, who is clearly his arch enemy, and seems really evil. He really enjoys throughout in this prologue. He really enjoys healing Lews. And in that moment, Lews then realizes he has killed his family, and that moment where Elan heals Lews, and he realizes what he's done and that he's lost is everything that Elan wants. He wants him to realize the depth of his loss. You've lost completely to me. So he's clearly really evil, and the interplay between these 2 characters is absolutely amazing. And the dialogue writing by Robert Jordan is just incredible.
On the audio book version of that, the version that I've listened to, I know you're listening to started listening to the Rosamund Pike version, but it's Michael Kramer and Kate Redding, and they are great at it. But Michael Kramer, he's got this kind of evil voice for Elan Morin Tedranai, and it is it just you kind of know just from listening to it that he's put his reading of that as that's the baddie, and Lews Therin is the good.
For you, why is the prologue so good?
The prologue is so good because you are just thrust straight into the action, or it's the aftermath of this cataclysmic event. As an audio book listener, you've kind of got these mad descriptions that you'll then later recognise. Robert Jordan's fantastic writing, he's so good at it, of this madness of Lews Therin, mad, and we as sane readers, you hope, are kind of just witnessing this major event, and the interplay in it, everything it sets up, which we'll go on to later when we talk about spoilers. It's kind of standalone. You can just enjoy it in its own right.
It's a great story, isn't it? It's just a great bit of writing. The pace of it is incredibly fast. All these crazy events are happening and happen throughout it. The interplay between the characters is great. Yeah, it really is one of the best chapters, and it's the only chapter from this guy Lews Therin's point of view. Obviously, he dies, so there aren't going to be any more. But he's a really important character. So the fact that you get to be in his head for a little bit is really important.
Yeah. You don't know that it's kind of thousands of years earlier, either do, than the rest of the book.
And that is one of the downsides of the prologue, maybe, is that it is not related. It's not it with the characters that you're going to grow to love, who actually act out the main part of the story. So it can be a little bit, when you move from the prologue then into the story, it can sometimes you haven't really got much of a clue. Did you have more of a sense? Did you know what was going on when you first read the prologue? How did it make sense to you?
It made sense perhaps on like the third listening or kind of reading of it. You're following plot the first time. You're really getting to know the characters a little bit more, and a bit of the interplay. Obviously, we want to share our love of this series with anybody. Rereads or first reads, just go for it. You'll love Dragonmount, the first prologue, but I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, and it sort of definitely makes more sense on the first reread. If you reread it 3 or 4 times, like Louis and me have, then some of these things really start to make sense. So probably should we get into the spoiler section? So we start talking about some of the things. So I was going to start off by some of the foreshadowing. So just to say, after this point, we're going to now spoil everything all the way to the end of the series. So if you've only read The Eye of the World or only read the prologue, definitely stop listening now. You don't want to spoil it. But the prologue has got so much foreshadowing. The one of the really interesting ones is Lews Therin's madness. So you later on you meet him in Rand's head. So Rand obviously is the Dragon Reborn. And Lews was the original dragon of this story. So that madness is really interesting, and the sort of tragedy of Lews and the tragedy of the story. It sort of foreshadows all the death and destruction and terror that we're going to see through the books.
In this age that you're then reading about, male channelers of this power, all they can expect is a very nasty death and madness, and you kind of saw that madness in the prologue earlier.
So that really so when they start talking about male channelers, so obviously only women at the beginning, only the women channel, and if you're a male and you channel, you will go mad. But actually you do see some other men go mad, and hear voices later on in the books when you start getting into the Ishamael and the things.
When do we meet our first Aes Sedai? It's Moraine, isn't it? In the Two Rivers.
I think it's the first chapter.
It's definitely the first part that we hope that our next podcast will be about. But all Aes Sedai are female, as you read about them, but not in Lews Therin Telamon's time. Aes Sedai were both male and female. They were two halves of the true source.
And that kind of whole piece around setting the scene for the male channelers and what caused the breaking of the world, and it was sealing the Dark One back in the bore, and only using male channelers to do it is what sent the taint, the Dark One taint, all the way back through all the men and that part of the thing. So that's really interesting. And I think the other part for me that you start to see this in the first in the prologue is it's quite a gendered book. There is differences between men and women, and they're celebrated, and they are part of this world. And you definitely see men and women breaking out of those bounds later. If you think about Min, I think Min's quite a kind of a character who sort of even thinks herself like a boy, but she also is still quite a female character. So it is the differences between men and women are celebrated, and that's not for everyone, but I really enjoy seeing that.
My favourite character's female in the entire series as well.
Which was that? Nynaeve, man,
she's just amazing. But
Nynaeve is amazing. I think my favourite character is Matt. I think.
Matt's brilliant as well. But the two of them, what they share in similarity, they just true to their nature
Yeah.
the entire way through. With Rand, who is, you know, chapter 1, we find out about Rand. You don't know, Lews Therin Telamon and Rand are going to be connected later. He obviously goes through a massive development in his character, whilst the other two, Matt and Nynaeve, whom we love, do the same.
In a slightly different way. And it's funny, isn't it? Also, this is so Rand becomes as powerful as Lews Therin. By the end of the book, he is as powerful as that, and he is as scary. And in some respects, you might even describe him as being as mad at some points. So it's really great to set the scene for that. And about what your sort of Easter eggs that you sort of enjoy when you go through it and you see things popping up, those sort of foreshadowings. What bits do you sort of really enjoy from that?
There's just so much. Again, like, third time through, you're starting to hear about this Dragonmount right at the end of the prologue that arises because Lews Therin Telamon can't take what he's done, and he draws so much power into himself that Dragonmount basically spawns where he was standing. And then there's an island. You just hear about this island that is at the foot of Dragonmount. At this point, you definitely don't know that is Tar Valon.
No idea. Yeah.
And that's where the kind of Aes Sedai home is, which is such a major part of this series of books. But
you
later
don't know
on,
that Rand was born on Dragonmount. But Rand obviously clearly is born on Dragonmount, so it's a hugely important location for the whole series. And it's absolutely incredible. I think there's also, for me, in this sort of in this whole series, the kind of the fight is kind of between hope and sort of nihilism or despair or nothingness. So obviously we know that Elan,
Morin Tedronai,
that one is Ishamael. And for a while you think Ishamael is the dark one, but actually Ishamael is just one of the Forsaken who goes through the first book, then actually gets kind of killed by Rand and brought back to life as Moradin. So it's between the dragon and Ishamael or Moradin all the way through. And what Moradin or Ishamael wants is to end the wheel. He just wants things to stop.
He wants oblivion. He wants
and then nothingness. And he just stop everything. That's kind of what he's going for. Whereas what it turns out is that Rand gets the opportunity for perfection right near the end is offered to him, but he turns it down because he wants the imperfection and the hope that's in that. Even though there's darkness, you accept the balance of the darkness and good, and it's that sort of hope in a difficult world, which is so powerful. So that's sort of that comes through in this, doesn't it? You get a strong sense that Elan just wants, or Ishamael just wants to destroy everything.
And he might win, as in you might see the end of Lews, his arch rival in this prologue at the very end, and he might win on that occasion. And if he can break the cycle, that's how things will stand. The dark will have won over the light. But if this is just the beginning of a cycle where then hope can overcome despair, then life in its imperfection can just continue over and over, and they may well go through this battle again later. But
and he's actually won. So you see the Ishamael wins, loses. That's literally it. But then obviously through the book it does kind of go backwards and forwards a bit, but in the end Rand wins and Ishamael loses. And I think it's almost something around how Lews Therin clearly couldn't let go. He clearly had a big ego and wanted to destroy the Dark One himself, and only the men could come with him. And he had this strong belief in his power. It's almost Rand kind of has to let go at the end of the book to kind of win in the end, and actually is embrace it. The
great bit of literature that you could just enjoy over and over. Just that moment, almost. Like it's climactic, and yet it's kind of so simple. It's so quiet in the end. But we're jumping ahead of ourselves. There's just so much.
But it is so clever, isn't it? How the prologue basically. I strongly believe that Robert Jordan knew what the whole story, the main sort of strokes of the story were when he wrote this prologue. And I think it's interesting as well. So Ishamael's actions in this prologue, you can make an argument to say that they're kind of what brings him down in the end. So he cured Lews Therin, and it was an act of deep cruelty and revenge, and he wanted to hurt him. So ultimately, I think there's an argument that you can say that it kind of backfired, because in Lews Therin, that kind of cruelty and rage created this sort of shared memory. So Rand shares some memories with Lews Therin. I think it gave him some depth. So when he then obviously was reborn as the dragon in the main story, that kind of emotional depth that he has, he almost understands that he's not perfect. He doesn't have the ego of Lews Therin as much. There is bits where he's massively egotistical, but I think almost that act where Ishamael kind of destroyed him created this profound sense of kind of, being sort of having a depth of character that allowed him to accept imperfection and his own imperfection to help him win at the end.
And it's the pride, isn't it? It's the pride of those 100 servants, his kind of faithful 100, trying to kind of almost like the creator defeat the Dark One, having the taint of Unsiding that then just scuppers everything for thousands of years. They go to a more primitive lifestyle, but it's a chance for the cycle to reset. Might be seen as a victory for Ishamael in that prologue, in this prologue that we're talking about, but ultimately they get another chance. They get another chance to use time to come to maybe a perfection point for me, and this is the perfect series. So I see perfection at the end, but just repeat the cycle. It's so satisfying as well.
It is so satisfying. I think all the way to this prologue is the first link between the dragon and Moradin or Ishamael. Later on, Rand and Ishamael are having a fight, aren't they? And they both do balefire, and it crosses. I can't remember what book that's in. If you know that, we love these stories and we're going to work through it. But yeah, I can never remember exactly what book stuff happened.
We don't even know all the names sometimes, and we certainly can't quote you the correct passages from whichever books. But
so let us know in the comments if you know what book the balefire crossing happens in. But I think they're at that place in the first book, aren't they? The place where that mist.
Aren't they at
Shadow Logoth?
Yeah.
It might be at Shadow Logoth when they're having a fight and their balefire crosses, and that creates another link between them. And of course, in the final battle, the links between Lews Therin, Dragon, Rand, and Moradin, Ishamael is how Rand survives, because they swap bodies. There's the classic, body cross, and so obviously Rand takes Moradin's body and walks off with it, leaves his old body behind with
lost the hand
and everything, and Moradin dies in that, and actually dies properly, I think, doesn't he? It's a true death, I think.
So maybe he wins as well. Maybe he gets his
gets what he wanted,
unless he's brought back as another thread.
And of course, it's going to go again, isn't it? And this is the whole point. So Rand ultimately protects the Wheel of Time. Ishamael wants to destroy it, so he gets kicked out, but they'll all come back and they'll do it again. And we were talking about this the other day, weren't we, that we kind of see that the TV show as just another cycle. So some people get a bit upset when you don't, with the TV show on Amazon Prime, which hasn't fully followed the books, but kind of I see it as a new turning of the wheel, so you can enjoy how it slightly differs this time. So one thing I don't think I've really fully understood myself is that Ishamael is trapped. So when the Dark One is sealed by the 100 companions, Ishamael is sealed, and all the Forsaken are sealed in there with him. But he's trapped, and he has been trapped. So this is what I don't understand. So we are in the prologue. It's after the sealing, but Ishamael is trapped. So how is he there? So I've never quite understood that. Because the boar is sealed, the 100 companions have got going mad and destroying the world. Why can he come here and talk to?
That's why the 100 companions was to seal the boar, wasn't it? And they managed to seal all the Forsaken, we understand, inside the boar. But Ishamael, which I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, means betrayer of hope in the old tongue.
That's really nice.
And in the prologue, we hear Ishamael call Lews Therin Kinslayer, and we hear him call him another name back, betrayer of hope, Ishamael in the old tongue. But
so I love that, because they're obviously speaking the old tongue, but we're having it translated to English or whatever language you watch it in, read it in. So when Lews Therin says "betrayer of hope" to Ishamael, he's literally saying Ishamael.
He's saying his
The
name.
word,
Isn't he?
yeah, I love that.
The way Ishamael travels into this scene, post kind of end of days inside the palace in Dragonmount, it's a shimmering, and then he's there, which makes me suspect that it is not the one power, but the true power,
yeah.
where most of the power that you hear about throughout the series is the one power, the two halves of which are Saidar, the female half, and Saidin.
I can never remember which way around.
Yes, the male side, which has got the taint on it, which the female side does not. When they travel later, which is one of the lost powers, as it were, it always kind of there seems to be through a kind of window that they make, and they kind of step through it. The way Ishamael arrives is a shimmering, and he's there like a bending of the pattern, and he's just in front. So maybe he gets out of the ball using that, because the 100 companions would have sealed the bore using the one power, although they did tap the bore in the first place to get the true power.
And the true power came out, didn't it? I think because he does get out over the centuries.
He does, so... and he sets up all those, the historical changes of kingdoms, and also he's behind the scenes trying to kind of puppet master, orchestrate things in order to meet probably Lews Therin as the Dragon Reborn in whatever form he takes.
He does say that in one of the chapters in the first bit, doesn't he? He talks to one of the dreams he's in. He says, "I whispered in Arthur Hawkins' ear, and I made him do the things that he did, and I made him kill all these people and stuff." I think he does. So he comes and goes from the war. So he was obviously only partially sealed, and he came and goes. So I wonder. I sort of, well, kind of think of it is how the reason he's maybe got there. So he is sealed in the bore, but he's able to get out at various times, like every 1,000 years or so. And maybe he just was able to get out of that beginning bit and then got sucked back in.
Yeah.
He was able. His desire. It almost is like his desire to destroy the dragon was so strong it enabled him. Perhaps maybe it was with the true power.
Yeah.
With the true power, that's really interesting, because that always felt to me when I read it for the first time that it kind of appears out of nowhere. It starts becoming used when Moradin comes along, I seem to remember. And it's not really used by anyone, obviously. But then you come back to the prologue, and this is what the wonder of his brain and his Robert Jordan's writing process, because clearly that's true power. He knew about it in the prologue, and he just hid it for 10 books until Moradin comes. It's just mad, isn't it?
But no, fantastic kind of how this is all set up. The first two Forsaken that Rand, Althor, and the Two Rivers lot in their kind of fellowship, if you like, for want of a better word, the ones that they meet are the ones right at the kind of top of the bore, who are like withered and papery,
messed up,
whereas anyone else who's kind of further down the bore maybe is there more true to their form that they were as the Chosen, or Aes Sedai as they were before they became Forsaken. So where does Ishamael fit in with that? He's half.
He's not messed up, is he?
He's not. No, he's a kind of handsome, striking, tall figure like Lews Therin that you meet in the prologue, and he's.
Yeah, it's amazing, and all the bits around these foreshadowing, and just to say about the true power as well. I think the true power basically is the dark one, isn't it? It's the power from the dark one. So Saidin and Saidar, male and female equivalents that come from the pattern, come from sort of, they're just there, aren't they? And you can tap them; they're part of the pattern. But the dark one is the true power, isn't it? So he offers you, and I think there's a link to it, isn't there? Some sort of thread that Rand learns to cut.
Yeah, in the Eye of the World,
he cuts the two Forsaken, and they're like, "Oh my god, I'm cut away
from the true power." Yeah, because he sees it. So I'm wondering at that point, is it one power?
Yeah,
true power
not clear.
So much later, but Jordan knew he hides it from us, and he just he just.
But maybe that black. So maybe again. So we are not encyclopedic. We're geeks and we love it. But so I think in terms of, do you want to go into a bit more around Rand hearing Lews Therin's voice in his head and how that links to the prologue and sort of what, you know, and some of the things that come and
Yeah.
what because now we've seen that Lews Therin is mad and he's going mental
Yeah.
at this point. What how does that play out when he's in Rand's head?
It is. I don't actually recall off the top of my head right now how he first kind of is aware that Lews Therin is in his head. But where I'm at the moment in the series, it's kind of book 7. He has almost teamed up with Lews Therin. The two of them are kind of vying for power inside Rand's head, and sometimes Lews Therin will kind of cackle in the background or reach for the power.
Or he fancies Min, doesn't he? He likes
Yeah,
Min.
he whistles when he sees a nice looking lady, as he sees
does something really weird, like
right.
touches his ear or something
or
really weird.
brings memories of kind of plum orchards, I think, that Rand doesn't have from the Two Rivers into his head. But so it's a bit of a kind of he can also mute him to like a fly buzzing in the background. Rand can to Lews Therin, so he's kind of always constantly there as a hum, as a buzz. But he can come and go, and Rand develops a control over just how much Lews Therin is kind of annoying him, as it were, and actually it goes from that kind of negative association of who is this in my head, where at the same time Lews Therin is saying, "Who are you? How dare you be in my head?" But we're reading it definitely from Rand's perspective. Lews Therin's definitely in Rand's head. Lews Therin thinks it's the other way around. They work together, and they kind of get Rand out of the tight spot, don't they?
And that bit when they get out of the box, when they're in the box, so Rand gets captured by
Aes Sedai under a lighter. This is not going to make sense.
Yeah, but you know, obviously you read the book. You're watching this. It's a spoiler, so it's obviously the bad Galinda.
Galena.
Galena. So
she is Black Azure.
Black Azure, yeah. So, and that's it. Yeah. So again, so we've got there's loads of dark Aes Sedai out there in the world, and one of my favourite things about the Wheel of Time is you don't know who is Black Azure or on the Dark One side, and
you might like some of the ones that are officially on the dark side as well.
And some of them are on there for power. Some of them are on there because they didn't know how to say no, like Sheriam, who's like really high up in the Aes Sedai. She's Black Archer, and she has her finger start getting cut off before they find out who she is. And she's a really weak person who went to him because she just wanted to. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Some do it for immortality. Asmodean is one of the Forsaken. We meet him much later, and he's like, "Well, I love music, and kind of I pictured a life of never-ending music. I wanted the immortality, so I could kind of always be about music, and that never changed. And so, what a reason to go into the dark.
We love music, but imagine giving your soul over to the Dark One just so you can play your harp for a bit longer. It's a bit weird, isn't it? And it's fascinating. So I think just we'll probably need to sort of stop this talk because we've been going for a while. This is probably gonna be like an hour-long episode, so please do definitely let us know if you want us to do the next section. I think we talked about doing more like groups of chapters, because if we try to do this for every chapter, there's enough to talk about. But I think we might be, so we're in our 40s, we would be in our 60s when we finish this. So, and I think you won't still be with us watching these videos. So let us know if you'd like us to keep going. We'll probably do the next section is when they're in the Three Rivers, Rand and his the Fellowship, and we can talk a little bit about the Lord of the Rings connections. And actually, I've got a thought on that, which we'll do next time around. Actually, that he's subverting. Everyone thinks that he's just copying Tolkien. I think he's taking Tolkien and saying it wouldn't really happen like that. But we'll talk about that more next time. But yeah, so let us know, because we will do this if you like this. But I think the prologue for me, just to my final thoughts on this are probably that really it sort of the prologue encapsulates the themes of the whole series. It's kind of the things you see happening between the characters is the core struggle, and you see it over and over again between the Black Archer and Nynaeve in this town in with Paladin or whatever. And I think Ishamael is showing us his end position. We learn through the books that he wants to end things, and you see that happening here. Lews destroys himself in a moment of rage and despair, and my view on that is that the deep horror of this event is kind of instills in Rand this deep memory which I talked about earlier, and I think it gives him a much more greater emotional range, which allows him to then deal with all the challenges that Lews clearly didn't have that emotional range to deal with. And I think, you know, it's a truly tragic event. So you start the story with no hope, and then you move into these young people's lives. But it kind of, this prologue is kind of helps you. It's the full circle, isn't it, of the wheel of time. So this is the bad bit where it ends, and then the whole books are about that cycle of acceptance of pain and despair, and the willingness for Rand to accept, yes, there will be a dark one in my future world, and that's okay. So yeah, it's the prologue is just such a it encapsulates it for me. It's a really great summary of the whole story, really. How about you, Lou?
Fantastic. You've got to have, as we said at the beginning, you're kind of thrust into the action, but you've got the two sides that are going to set up a brilliant story. Good versus evil. We love that. We want more of that, and hopefully, if you should stick with us, we'll try and give you our sense on a bit more of that as this fantastic series carries on.
So yeah, smash that like button, and if you want to kind of see the next one of these, hit the subscribe, because it will come up in your channel, in your page.
My 7-year-old is going to be very happy that you said those phrases. Smash that like and hit the subscribe button, because he loves that.
Exactly, and I think hopefully you've enjoyed this. It's the kind of thing you can just listen to if you enjoy the books, enjoy the audio books. Hopefully you enjoy listening to us talk about it. We love it. We'll keep going on this, having a good conversation. And so we're the Brothers of Time, which is a bit of a crazy name, but I don't know what else to call us. But
other suggestions were Wheel of Gears, which kind of makes sense
because our surname's Gearing, so Wheel of Gears.
I like Brothers of Time.
Yeah, and I think most of the other names.
Our other brothers read it as well, I think.
Yeah, he's read it, so
we might not allowed.
We might get him in every now and again. We've got a
guest
third brother and a sister, so maybe we'll get them in at some point. But you know, when we asked our wives what we should call this podcast, we had some very rude titles with swear words in them, because your wife Mary has read this series. My wife Nick has tried to read it a few times. She's the one that bought the audiobook to try and listen to that first book. Got too patient. She just doesn't want to do it.
And I know where she's coming from, because it took me a while to be converted, because of the fear I had of such an epic cycle. But once deeply into it, I don't really want to go anywhere else. Maybe I am in the Wheel of Time. Maybe I can't get out of the Wheel of Time.
Watch the ball, don't kill your family, and hopefully you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Till next time, everyone. Thanks.